Hi everyone, it's Fiona here, and I'm back with my series about paradigm shifts between life coaching and Vedic astrology. And we've been talking about the agony that is in charts and in all of our lives, the suffering that we all feel, and those places that are very tender in our astrology charts in our lives. And just noticing how when we come at it from a life coaching perspective, we can often rush towards solutions and to change, and that everything that is causing us suffering should be changed and eliminated. And that Vedic astrology is offering to hold our hand through the really rough times in our lives and through the wounds that are there in the chart. And that there can be a lot of wisdom in being at peace with the pain that's in the chart. And as we know from yoga, it is from stillness. When an action comes from stillness, from silence, that's when we create effective action. And also, that action doesn't create the karma that it would create if it's a reaction, which is when we're just bouncing from one thing, one stimulus to the next. So far we've had a look at the different paradigms, and we've had a look at the quotes. You can see these all in the previous videos in the series. And then we have identified some main culprits of suffering in the chart, where these agonies might be located in the chart, and how understanding them better can give us that opportunity with wisdom to be still, look at our chart objectively, have compassion for the self. So last time we were together, we spoke about K2. Today, I want to speak to you about annihilated houses, and we've got some other likely contenders there. K2, you already know. Okay, so annihilated houses, what are they? So this comes from Brihat Parasara Hora Sastra. It's in chapter 11, and I've got the verse numbers there. But you could also just pull up your copy of BPHS. Here's one online. And see that right at the end of chapter 11. Okay, so chapter 11, Judgment of the Bhavas, or Judgment of the Houses. There's just a short sentence on each house going through here. And then right at the end, how to calculate the prosperity and annihilation. And really, we're trying to show this area of karma, which is what the houses, they're all delineating places where the karma takes place in our life. Is that area of karma, does it have support to be able to be wise and have its eyes open and respond well? Or is it challenged? So you can read the sentence down here, but let's pop back to the overview and just share that what paradigm this is really asking us to shift is, can we accept that there are some areas in our life that are more supported than others? And this really comes down to that idea that maybe you can identify with this more if you're a woman, but maybe actually this has always been told to men, and women have just stepped into this in recent time. But as a younger woman, when I was in high school, I was told you can have it all. I'm from that generation where when we were in high school, we were expecting to have a great job, be fully qualified at the university level, to have romance, to have children, to have good relationships with our families and friends, that we could have it all. And perhaps over our lifetimes, this generation has maybe questioned that sometimes, as we've reached an age where we like biologically can't have children, but we've been really focused on other areas of success and really questioning, can we have it all? But I would say that in general, the life coaching perspective is, yes, you can have it all. Of course you can. If you put your attention to it, you can have it. And Vedic astrology is asking or introducing a paradigm shift there, that there may be areas of karma that are annihilated, as put in the translation of the ancient text, or that are really challenged to be able to bring forth their fruits or successful fruits. And what would that mean if, could you be okay? Could you just sit and be okay that, wow, that's an area of my life where um, it's a real challenge to be successful in that area. Could be health, could be children, could be parents, could be learning, could be expenses, could be gains. You all know how these astrology houses are spread out. So is it okay with you that on the balance of all things in everyone's chart, some areas are more supported and some areas are less, because that's the breath of fresh air that astrology is offering. Now, in terms of looking at the astrology, really it comes down to combinations of conjunctions and Rashi aspects. So really that house, is it supported by the planets that are either in the house or Rashi aspecting the house? Are they benefic and supportive? And are they manifesting types of planets, being Jupiter and Mercury? And the planet that rules that house, is it aspecting the house and therefore able to have some say in it? And what company is it in? What state is it in itself? So this is all comes from that paragraph that you just saw in Brihat Parasara Hora Sastra. But this is my little table that I use in Word. You want to know if there's good Rashi aspects or malefic Rashi aspects, if it's with a benefic planet, if it's with a malefic planet, what state it's in, whether it's young, whether it's awake or asleep, and is it in the 10th house, therefore getting activated, or is it in a more difficult house? Is it aspecting its own house, or does it have these manifesting planets aspecting it, or is it being defeated in planetary war? So you can see how they kind of balance out there. And I just thought we'd have a look at our favorite test subject, Prince Harry. So when we look at the overall analysis, this is from the house analysis tables, which you can also see up in the video. This is my own way of really looking in depth at each house. So all the houses have their own little details here, but I can come to the summary and I can just have a look in this bottom table for each house, what's getting more prosperity and what's getting more annihilation by house. So if we were to pick on a house that's getting a really hard time, we could notice that the third house has just the one indicator for prosperity, and it's got 6 indicators for annihilation. So it's quite challenging. And we notice that that is repeated a little bit with the 12th house, is the other really, really struggling one. It's got 2 indicators for prosperity and 6 for annihilation. So, I mean, yes, that's correct. And why is that? Because actually, if you remember the chart, let's pop over. This third house and 12th house is ruled by that debilitated Jupiter. So, of course, we're going to see some challenges there. So you saw it on the spreadsheet, but it might make more sense to see it. In Word, because it's in text. So here we're looking at the third house, and really the only thing that we have going for us in Prince Harry's chart on the prosperity level is that first lord, debilitated in Capricorn and under lots of other kinds of difficulty, is at least in the first house. Now, I personally give that tick of prosperity. Not all of my fellow apprentices do. So it's up to you whether you strictly think that the Lord has to be in the 10th house to be activated. But I often heard Ryan talk about, or if it was in any angle, and sometimes you might like to think if it's in a trine, depends how generous you want to be. But in this situation, let's try and give him 1 point for prosperity there for the third house. But then you can notice what is stacked up against this third house, that we're getting Rashi aspects only from malefics. That is because Mercury is with the sun there. So, yep, there we go. And we have got that Jupiter is in a dead state and it's asleep. So it makes it very hard for Jupiter to respond to those calls to karma. Like karma can sometimes be like a bit of a train wreck, or a train wreck that you can see coming, but if you're asleep, it's just not, you can't see it. And when it's in a mrita state, I guess it does mean that the karma has burned itself basically out. So it shouldn't be a huge train wreck, but it's still there. It still has some power. And unfortunately, Jupiter is not aspecting the third house. So however, I've just pulled myself up here because I can see that Mercury is Rashi aspecting that third house. So a little bit of support from the manifesting side there. And so how do we see this play out in Prince Harry's chart? The third house is actually one that we've got both the text on the blog and we've got the video analysis. So you can go have a look at the details of this. But I guess what we could say about the third house, it's a complex house to describe what happens in the third house. It's all about our courage and our adventure and the challenges of experimenting and learning things through our hands and through our own experiments. It's also our younger siblings. And because we had Brihat Parasara open, we can have a look here and share that it's courage, servants, brothers and sisters, initiatory instructions, journeys, and parents' death. So if we think about what we know about Prince Harry's life, and you can go read the blog and watch the video, we know that he was not great at school. It just wasn't an area where he shone in that initiatory instructions in maths and the rules of grammar and all those things that we might consider the basics of education. And that he doesn't have any younger siblings. And we do know that he did lose a parent. And, you know, a challenge to his courage. And I think now his whole life lived, or well into his life, we can say that actually this is an extremely courageous person. And this comes up in the blog if you want to read or watch the video. We talk about his call to the military and to adventure through being in, in a band of peers and of brothers in arms. So I think he's really actively gone to try to pursue that. But perhaps this experience of losing the mother so young in life demands a big call to courage. And perhaps what we saw, understandably, is that in his youth, from that moment, or even before, he was a shy child, perhaps, or someone more comfortable in private than in public. That call to courage was too much for him at that time and had a big effect on his teenage years and his young adulthood. So it's kind of backed up that the house wasn't given a lot of support, and that it was a very, very challenging experience for him. However, we have to remember it's Jupiter, and Jupiter always wants to give what support it can. And then I guess we could wrap up by just sharing that in terms of prosperity, perhaps his fifth house is the one doing the best, with 7 indicators for prosperity and just 2 for annihilation. So if we were to look at his fifth house, we can see that this is a Venus-ruled house. Venus is actually Rashi aspecting the house. So is Jupiter. The house lord is in a young state or an adult state. It's awake. It's also in the 9th. So I'm giving that a yes. And as we said, aspecting the house. So just a lot more support coming to the 5th house. Not to say that Rahu and Moon don't have their challenges for this chart as well, but just a lot more supportive aspects and avashtas for this fifth house. And if we zoom out from his life and we look at what is the fifth house about creating a legacy and taking your life in your own hands, this is something that he has managed to do in quite a dramatic way. And it's not without its consequences, but perhaps this is something that he's had his eye on doing for quite some time and trying to find the right situation to do that in. And with the support from the prosperity of the house here, he's been able to make a break from the royal family that you can't think of among his generation or his parents' generation, anyone having that opportunity to break that is blood, line to the ruling monarch. So not a small feat. So how does that sit for your chart? Are there houses in your chart that are getting a lot of support for prosperity? But more important for this series, are there houses in your chart that are challenged and that are really suffering some aspects that make it quite difficult to achieve things? And how has that played out in your life? And can you sit still in that and be okay that that's neither good nor bad? It's just the lay of the land. So I look forward to your thoughts about prosperity and annihilation and how that has affected your experience of your chart and your life. And I look forward to seeing you the next time we get together to talk about paradigm shifts between life coaching and Vedic astrology. Okay, until then, stay well.